Welcome to another reading of Mehera-Meher. We're on chapter 69 of volume 2, titled Misadventures. And the page number is 265. On the 9th of August, 1944, Baba left Raipur for Kashmir in Jal Karawala's car, with Mehera Meru Typhoon and a Muslim driver. Jal himself drove Rano, Kakabaria, and Baidul in a station wagon loaded with the luggage, while the rest of the Mandali went ahead by train. On the journey to Kashmir, Baba sat in the front seat next to the driver with the three women, and Typhoon in the back. A curtain was hung between the front and back seat so that Mehera remained secluded. The driver, however, was wearing copious amounts of perfumed hair oil, and the car reeked with the scent. Mani was sitting directly behind him and gagged at the smell. Taking a shortcut, Baba's car drove through a heavily forested area, but the car went over a rock that punctured the gas tank, which began leaking. They had to stop and wait for the station wagon, which arrived 10 minutes later. The men got out, and Baba and the women and Rano continued in the station wagon to a dak bungalow for lunch. After they washed their hands and began to open the tiffin carrier that they had brought from Raipur, they found that the top container with the bread opened easily, but the second, third, and fourth compartments with the vegetable, rice, and dal were stuck. Baba asked what was going on. Mehera explained that the hot dal must have created a vacuum inside the carrier, and the lids would not come off. Meanwhile, the Mandali arrived, and Baba sent the carrier to them with Rano, saying that they should open it. The men pulled and tugged until the lids finally opened. Mehera then served Baba rice and dal, and he told them to eat also. About 1 o'clock, with Jal now driving his own car and Rano back in the station wagon, Baba and the other three women started for Nagpur with Jal. Mehera described their journey. Evening fell and it grew dark. Nagpur was coming. We started feeling hungry, tired, and sleepy. At last we saw some lights through the forest. Baba wanted a rest for the night. He told Jal to find a traveler's bungalow. We drove there, happily looking forward to having a nice bite to eat and a rest. It was a nice big house. The Mandali got down from the second car to arrange for the room, but it was full. We had to drive again, on and on. 9, 10, 11 o'clock. There was a bit of moonlight. Jal must have been so tired. It was nearly 1 o'clock, and there was no rest house in sight. An incline came, and the car stalled. Baba told us to get down. Finally, the car did start, but it wouldn't go forward. Jal told us to give it a push. We were so tired and hungry, and now we had to push the car. Baba himself was pushing it, Mani and Meru helping. Baba told Mara she was not to push it. We had a little puppy, Typhoon, with us of 4 or 5 months. I had to hold the puppy's leash and the sack with Baba's things in it. It was such a funny sight. People going by in bullock carts turned to stare at us. They managed to push the car to the top of the incline, and Jal assured Baba that now everything would be fine. Mara continued, "We got in. The car seemed to be going all right. We forgot about eating, but what about getting some rest?" At last, at 2:30 or 3 a.m., a dock bungalow was seen. Luckily for us, it was vacant. Baba told us to find places and rest. One of us slept on the table, one on a chair, and one on a bed with no mattress. We were dead tired. We had to get up early the next morning, before 6. The station wagon arrived before we left, Meru continued. Actually, Baba was waiting for it to catch up. Their plight, too, was similar to ours, with motor problems and punctures. Baba decided to change cars again, with Jal driving Baba and us in the station wagon, and all the luggage behind. Mara, Mara said, "We had tea and started again. We drove for miles." Meru said, "Our destination was Badnera, where Baba was going to contact a must." Mara continued, "At Badnera, someone who knew Baba stopped us. He had brought a 14-year-old boy. Baba liked the lad and made him sit in the front seat between himself and Jal. We drove on, hoping the car didn't break down again. Jal was on tenterhooks that it would make it. Our hearts were in our mouths. Meru said, "We were going at a good speed, and Baba patted Jal on the back to show his approval. But soon afterwards, the horn stopped working." Baba asked, "What kind of a car have you brought for me to use?" Jal said that it was the best he could find. Fortunately, besides the electric horn, there was an old-fashioned rubber horn outside the car, which one squeezed. But after 2 toots, this horn too stopped working properly. Jal wrenched it from its holder and handed it to the boy to blow. Mara said, Jal gave an old-fashioned pom-pom horn to the boy and told him to hoot it out the window whenever he saw someone on the road. The boy was very happy to do this. From a mile off, he started honking the horn. Finally, Jal told him to do it only when the person was near. The boy, in his enthusiasm, said Mara, would blow on the horn long before he needed to, and it was deafening. Baba told him, "My boy, don't go poo so much ahead of time. Just go toot, toot, toot when the traffic is nearby." It was all we could do to restrain our laughter. Eva, could you unmute and take a turn?
I was just going to ask you if you'd like me to. Just 2 miles short of their destination, Baba changed into the smaller car again. After a short distance, the car stalled and would not restart. Jal realized they had run out of gas. Baba asked Jal what he proposed to do now. Jal saw a bullock cart and went and spoke with its driver. For a fee, the man agreed to tow the car to a nearby dock bungalow before it got dark. Slowly, the car was towed. Baba must have been very impatient, Mehera observed. He would always prefer the car to go fast, and, in fact, he had told Jal to drive faster this time to make up for all the lost time. Now here we were, going at bullock cart speed. It was too funny. But we did reach a nice rest house before evening. And from here, the boy that Baba had brought along was sent back to his family. The dock bungalow was at a place called Murtazapur, and the women washed and had a good meal. They stayed for 2 days while Jal tried to have the cars repaired, and Baba did must work in the area. Because of the problems with the cars, Baba decided to continue their journey by train. On the evening of their departure, he came to the women around 5 p.m. with a proposal. There's a cinema house not far from here. Would you like to go to see a film? Although the women had already packed, they agreed to go. As Mehera put it, why say no when it was Baba who was suggesting it? We had to now open the suitcases, which we didn't want to open. At last, we unpacked and got ready. An hour later, around 6, Baba came back and told them the car had come. Everyone got in. Mehera, Mani, Meru in the back, and Rano in front with Baba and the driver. The car was parked by the front steps. As they got in, the bearers and cooks stood at attention on the veranda, saying salam and saluting them. The women politely returned their salams. Baba told them to roll up the windows, and he asked Jal to start the car. Jal turned the ignition key. The engine would not turn over. By now, it was 6:30 p.m. and getting late. Baba was a bit exasperated. There's no time to go to the movies now, he said. Everyone get out. The women tried to open the back door of the car, but it would not budge. Rano climbed over the seat and pushed as hard as she could, but it was jammed. Baba asked what they were doing, and when they explained, he told Jal to pull the door open. The servants who were standing so respectfully were now watching the fun, Mehera said. We had all dressed up to go to the movies, and now we couldn't get out of the car. They must have thought what an old car we are using. We felt so embarrassed, so disappointed. At last, two of them managed to tug open the door from outside, with Rano kicking from the inside. When the door flew open, Rano nearly fell out. This is not the end of the story. There were more funny adventures to come, Mehera continued. That same night, we were to board the train by 1 a.m. Baba told us to get ready and go to the station. We went by car. Baba told Rano to keep an eye out for the women's compartment. It was a small station, and the train would not be stopping long. As soon as it came, we were to get in. Baba would be with the men. The train pulled in, and Rano directed us to the right compartment. We all started running with the other passengers, fighting for a place. But the door to the compartment was locked, and no one would open it for us. We were worried the train might leave. Rano knocked on the window. It was so late. The ladies inside were all nicely sleeping. Rano banged and banged on the window. The window fell open. With great difficulty, she put her hand inside. A lady in a red sari was sleeping on the seat. Growing desperate, Rano slapped the woman on the rump and told her to open the door. She was a plump Parsi lady. She couldn't believe it, this Western woman hitting her. She opened the door and we tumbled inside. When the women saw that we too were Parsis, traveling with a Westerner, she gave us a seat. She was half sleeping herself and went back to sleep. After a few hours, dawn broke. The Parsi woman woke and started talking to them. She asked who Rana was and where they had come from. As she was a fellow Zoroastrian and seemed educated, Mehera urged Mani to talk with her. Why should we talk to her and get involved? Mani asked in a whisper. Better to keep quiet. But Mehera persisted. At least tell her about Rano. Mani turned to the woman and said, "We are Iranis from Ahmednagar, traveling to Kashmir. This is our guest, Miss Rano Gailey, an artist from America who stays with us." The woman looked suitably impressed. Rano was oblivious to the conversation. She was preoccupied keeping an eye out for the next station, where they had to change trains. Mehera asked a few more questions and found out that the woman was the principal of a school. At Nagpur station, Kaka came near the window and told Rano to bring everyone out. So that no man touched Mehera, the standard procedure was for Mani and Meru to stand on either side of Mehera and whisk her into the waiting room, where Baba joined them. Rana was left to deal with the luggage. Mehera found the situation amusing. One minute we were smiling and chatting politely with the woman, and the next we were piling out of the compartment. Rano began yelling, "Porter, porter," and throwing our luggage and bags out the window. There were no bars across the window in those days. Rano had to hurry to get everything out to the porters, as the doors were blocked with passengers coming and going. Here was our guest tossing things out the window. The Parsi woman looked on curiously. We three Indian girls were just standing around. We had to keep out of the way of all the men, and our Western friend was calling the porters and arranging everything. What kind of guest was she? What kind of hosts were we to make Rano do everything? We told all this to Baba, and he too found it amusing. Mani said, "See, Mehera, I told you we shouldn't have talked with her." I didn't care what she thought, Rano noted. I had to get the bags, small and big, through the window. Sometimes, because of her fair complexion, people mistook Mani for a Westerner. So as not to offend them, she said she was a Persian. Even this did not work on one occasion, when someone misheard and thought Mani said she was a Parisian. Once, when there were many, it was not possible to procure tickets for all in one compartment, and for a short distance they traveled separately. Usually they were together, but this time some went in one compartment and some in another. They came to a station and someone began pounding at the door of Mani's compartment. No one else inside the compartment paid the slightest attention. So Mani finally got up and opened the door. An Indian man literally fell into the compartment, his eyes filled with gratitude for being let in. During the journey, they talked, and the man said to Mani, "You know, none of my own countrymen would have done what you did for me." The group arrived in Delhi on 14 August, where they spent the night at the house of Keki Desai and his wife Doon. who had been warned to keep Baba's visit an absolute secret. Chanji, who had made the arrangements, met them there. No other Baba lovers were seen or darshan granted, though Baba did contact the spiritual chargeman of Delhi. That evening, the women finally got to see a movie. Baba took them to Lassie Come Home. The next day, they took a train to Lahore and then on to Rawalpindi, where they spent the night in the waiting room at the station. They continued by car or bus the next morning and spent the following night at the Duck Bungalow at Domel. They were late in arriving, as the roads were terrible, and they had been delayed at the border post over Rano's permit to enter Kashmir. She was supposed to pick it up at the proper office there, but the clerk had trouble locating it until he was remunerated by Chanji with Baba's permission. At, as night fell, they reached a Dak bungalow, but the place was full. They were given one room without beds, so they unrolled their bedding and slept on the floor. It was freezing cold. The following evening, 18 August, they reached Srinagar after 9 days on the road. The other Mandali, who had gone ahead by train, had arrived 3 days before. Chanji again was not feeling well. Although he was weak and had a high fever, he had managed to perform what was to be his last duty for Baba, of hiring a bungalow 6 miles away at Shalimar or Nishat. However, since the house was still under construction, all stayed in the majestic hotel in Srinagar for the first week. And Eugene, I must go. Sorry.
Thank you, Eva. Jai Baba. Chanji's condition grew noticeably worse, and 2 days later, when he was diagnosed with typhoid, he was admitted to a nursing home. Baba visited him for a few hours each day and then returned to the hotel. Chanji never recovered. He died a week later on the 25th of August, the day Paris was liberated from the Germans, and was buried in Srinagar. After Chanji passed away, Baba said what a wonderful worker he had been and how he would miss him. Mehera asked, "Why didn't you save him, Baba, since you will miss him and be so handicapped by his absence?" Baba told her, "Twice I saved him. It's time he went now." The day before Chanji died, Baba and the women had finally moved into the house in Shalimar. Soon after his death, Baba gave Chanji's wristwatch to Mani, who thought it a peculiar gift because it was a man's watch. She asked, "Wouldn't one of the men like it?" Baba just took it from her hand and sat for a minute, poker faced, before giving it back to her. I knew now there was something behind Baba's action, Mani continued, and I just took it. I mounted the watch in a box on my desk and used it. Later, when Mani was asked to write the family letters, keeping in touch with Baba lovers around the world, she realized the significance of Baba's gift. I was being given part of Chanji's secretarial role. The house in Shalimar, owned by Karamchand Bhagat, was known as Bhagat Villa, and Mehra remembered. It was a beautiful house by the side of Dal Lake, but we couldn't see the lake except from the terrace. The garden was full of flowers and shady trees, everything green. There was also a great cook who used to cook for Rajas and Ranis. The best cook and the best food, Baba commented. We went boating on the lake one day. Baba sent us alone when he was with the men. It was summertime, and there were thousands of pink and blue water lilies on the lake. Our boat passed one Western woman sitting in another boat, holding a parasol. It looked so picturesque. The tiny boats, the flowers, a man rowing. Another day, Baba took us outside of town to another garden. He pointed in the direction of a distant range of hills near Harvan, very forested and green with trees, and said that this is where Jesus is buried. Whenever Baba was near Harvan, he took the mandali to view the area where Jesus is buried in a cave. They never saw the actual cave, but as Mehera pointed out, the mountain is heavily forested, and the cave may also have been covered over by avalanches long ago. About his own burial, Baba had given instructions during the blue bus phase to bury his body on Mehrabad Hill. Erich had asked what they should do if he dropped his body while they were traveling and away from Mehrabad. In that case, you should wait until there are signs of decay, Baba had said, and then cremate my body and take the ashes to Mehrabad. And there's a sidebar that says, in earlier days, Mani would not have uttered a word of questioning, but she explained somehow now we were being more vocal. I'm guessing that's referring to the watch, Chanji's watch that Baba gave her. From this, Erich had a hint that Jesus was alive when he came to Kashmir after the crucifixion. It wouldn't be like Baba to have had his dead body carried to Kashmir, Erich noted. He was most practical, a man amongst men. Another incident from this time occurred when the women were dressing to go out. Mani was ready in the garden playing with Typhoon when a young man wearing a perin, which is a loose shirt, came to their gate and walked inside. Mayor Karan, would you like to take a turn reading, or are you on duty?
Yes, I'm driving back home. We will just listen.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. Mani asked who he was. He replied, perhaps in Kashmiri, something that sounded to her like Ozo Bozo. Mehera from the window upstairs asked who he was. Mani said, either his name is Ozo Bozo or he is calling me Ozo Bozo. Everyone laughed and Mehera recalled. From that day on, we named Mani Ozo Bozo. Maybe it's a nice name in their Kashmiri language. We didn't know what he meant. We took it that he meant Mani was mad or stupid. He turned out to be a lower plane must. Baba explained later that the man had been trying to say Huzur or Buzur, which meant he had come to meet the Great One. In Kashmir, Baba continued to go on must trips. But by September, the weather was turning chilly. Mehera and the others were freezing every morning. Mani complained that her toes got frozen, sticking out from under her covers. Since they had good blankets in Ahmednagar, Baba wrote to Adi Sr. to bring them to Kashmir. In that way, they did not have to purchase new ones. And there's a sidebar that says, blankets too were particularly scarce in Europe during wartime, and perhaps in India also. Baba allowed an hour's public darshan on September 20th at their bungalow, and almost 500 people attended. The next day, Baba left for more must hunting with Kaka and Baidul, which he continued throughout September. At the conclusion of this phase in Kashmir, he stated to the Mandali, two mountains will bump into each other and will become separate. In between, there will be one mountain, which will be the root cause of continued clashes thereafter. Later, this was taken to be a reference to the coming partition of India into two countries, India and Pakistan, with Kashmir in between, and the cause of two wars and continued disputes for years to come. And the reference here is Lord Mayor online, page 2430. By the second week in September, American units had reached the German border. Not since Napoleonic times had Germany itself been invaded. And Hitler took to his bed with nervous exhaustion and jaundice. Jaundice, I think that's a liver disease. While the women were vacationing and Baba turned his attention to the future partition of India, there occurred what the German generals considered a miracle. The furious advance of the Allies subsided as Eisenhower had supplies, including blankets, brought in from Normandy. And the Allied soldiers enjoyed a well-earned leave in liberated Paris. At the end of September, Baba and a few of the men went to Rawalpindi, where Baba contacted just one old must before journeying on to no man's land in the barren region bordering Afghanistan. Here he sat in seclusion for a few days, with Kaka and Baidul keeping watch, and thereby fulfilled one of the necessities for his spiritual work, as explained to the signatories. In warfare, the phrase no man's land refers to a belt of ground between the most advanced trenches of opposing armies. Baba had gone into that land, and in China, as well as in Europe, The war that autumn had become a stalemate before the final catastrophic collapse of the old order. Here's a cool picture of Baba and people at the Ellora Caves, 18 May 1939, a shot taken by Elizabeth. Beautiful. Chapter 70, An Altercation. The entire Far East was in the throes of war and famine as Meher Baba worked in seclusion in an isolated area in the extreme northeast of India. 2 to 3 million Chinese died of hunger and disease. Reminiscent of predictions made by Baba, people had resorted to eating roots and bark from trees. 2 million others fled the worst affected province. Thousands of refugees jammed the railway station. The heavy night air was full of the stench of human beings who lay in mounds on the platforms. In the railway cars, people were piled thick. Some had been packed on the train for days. They would not leave their places for fear of being unable to get aboard again. And that's a quote by Theodore White and Anna Lee Jacoby. The book title being Thunder Out of China. But then, as in the European theater at the same time, the Japanese halted their advance 5 weeks to regroup. It was as if the stage manager of the war had called a halt to field activity. Baba returned from no man's land in the last week of September 1944. A day or so later, he and the group departed Srinagar, halting for one night along the way. They reached Rawalpindi the next day, and there too spent one night in a hotel. Typhoon was still with them, and the women had been carrying a basket of almonds and walnuts also, which grew in abundance in Kashmir and had been gifted to Baba at the Darshan program. Baba had not permitted them to eat the nuts in Srinagar, and Mehera thought to take them back for the others in Aurangabad, where Baba had called everyone. She was disappointed when they had to empty the basket at the border checkpoint. For some reason, the British authorities did not permit such food items to be brought out of Kashmir at that time. The group was to travel to Agra by train to ensure that they would have a compartment to themselves. Kaka had reserved the compartment from Peshawar, where the train started, so that it would arrive in Rawalpindi empty. But it was wartime and the train was packed. At Peshawar, a Punjabi couple must have pleaded with the conductor to allow them to occupy the compartment, saying they would vacate it at Rawalpindi and they were allowed to sit inside. But at the Rawalpindi station, the train became even more crowded and the entire reserved compartment filled with people and baggage. The Punjabi gentleman and others got down at once, but his wife refused to leave. Mera and the other women arrived with only a limited amount of time before the train started. They boarded their compartment with Baba and the intruder who was trying to usurp their space. The woman was quarrelsome and rude about everything, Mera recalled. She refused to get down, though her husband told her to. Baba was annoyed. He said firmly to Mani, who relayed his messages to Kaka on the platform, no matter what happens, the train should not start until she gets down and every scrap of her luggage is taken out. The woman heard Mani interpreting Baba's gestures and said, I would like to see the man who's going to get me down from here. It was such a row. It was such a row, Mera continued, with so many spectators crowding around to watch the altercation. Although all of the women Mondali were in the compartment, their luggage was still outside. The guard pleaded with the woman. Baba was adamant. The train should not start until she takes her luggage off. Outside on the platform, Kaka was arguing loudly with the guards and other railway authorities in a demanding, indignant tone of voice. Although Kaka was short in stature, when Baba told him to, he could roar. Rano and Mani shouted points to him through the window. Meanwhile, the women Mondali's luggage got loaded inside the compartment, and the guard said that now that their luggage was on board, the train could leave. But Kaka told Mani to pull the emergency chain and not let the train depart. In the end, after lengthy entreaties from her husband, the woman agreed to get down. I think something would have happened if she hadn't gotten out, Meru opined, because Baba was so strict and stern about it. Usually in such situations, he would give in, but her attitude was so wrong. When all this was over, as Mara and the others were settling in, a young Eurasian woman approached them and humbly begged for a bit of space in their compartment for her mother. She and her mother had come to India with other Burmese refugees, she explained. They had been holidaying in Srinagar and were on their way somewhere else. Here we were getting this one woman down, said Mera, and this other woman was asking for space. Mera and Mani spoke to the young woman and found out that some soldiers had given her a seat in their compartment, but she needed one more place for her mother. The mother and daughter had no luggage, so that would not be a problem. The polite and humble way she approached them prompted them to tell Baba about the situation, and he said to let the mother come inside. Just as the train started, we got one woman down and another one inside, said Meru. Baba then joined the Mondali in their compartment. While traveling overnight by train, one of the women was to stay awake all night, so Meru and Rano took turns. Another time, while traveling in a reserved compartment, a military man pleaded for his wife and two children to be allowed to sit in the women's compartment. Baba, as usual, was with the men, and in the end, the women agreed to the soldiers' request. The family, however, brought with them a ton of luggage, and their beddings smelled like a stable. The women said they did not mind having the women said they did not mind having the wife and her son and daughter in the compartment, but what about all the luggage? The soldier assured them that as soon as there was room in his compartment, he would move it. The luggage was piled in the aisle, and the women grumbled to themselves about it. So many stations came, but the luggage remained where it was, blocking the door. But there was an unexpected fallout from it. People came to their compartment, looked inside, saw all the luggage, and left without even trying to enter. After an hour, the man came to remove the bags, but the women Mondali now said to leave it where it was, as it was preventing anyone else from coming inside. The soldier's wife was plump, placid, and lethargic. For a while, her daughter kept bawling, and nothing soothed her. The mother wanted to wash her face, but the husband had their toiletries with him. Finally, Mehera gave her a sliver of soap. It was soap that Baba himself had used to wash his hands. So the children were fortunate that they got to use it as well. At times, Baba instructed Rano not to allow any boys over 12 years old into the women's compartment. Yet at other times it was allowed. Once, when Baba said that there should be no older boys in their compartment, a group of Sindhi women with a grown son boarded the train. Rano told them that the son had no right to be there, since this was a ladies' only compartment, and he must leave. The father was standing outside the compartment, loading the luggage. He said the boy had to be with his mother. Rano insisted, but the man was equally obstinate. It finally reached the point where Rano was going to throw the son off. She told Mani and the others to stay in the corner of the compartment while she ran to consult Baba. She reached his compartment panting and told him what had happened. But Baba said to go back and not to worry about it. When Rano returned, she was dumbstruck to see the entire party leaving the compartment. She asked Mani what had happened, but Mani just shrugged and said, for some reason, they decided to get down. Baba and the women arrived in Agra on 30 September, where the women stayed in the Agra hotel for a week, while Baba did must work in Delhi and the surrounding areas. Baba, however, took them again to the Taj Mahal. They had seen it with him before by moonlight during the Blue Bus tour. He also took them to a film, Slightly Dangerous, a comedy about a waitress who has amnesia. The women were especially tickled during one scene in which the waitress is hit on the head and begins remembering her nanny by calling out, Baba, Baba. The 1943 film stars Lana Turner, Robert Young, and Walter Brennan. On 7 October, Baba and the group left Agra on the Punjab mail train and reached Manmad the following day. Adi Sr. met them, along with Walu and Rakhma, and drove them to Aurangabad. Here they stayed for 7 weeks in another bungalow owned by the landlord of Prem Basera, where they had stayed previously in February. Baba again told Mani to do the cooking. During their first few days in Aurangabad, Baba took them to Kuldabad for a week to see the tomb of Sai Baba's master, Zarzari Zar Bakhsh. Zarzari Zar Bakhsh. The day after they arrived was a tremendous festival called Urus, held every year on the saint's death anniversary. Zarzari Bakhsh in Urdu means giver of gold. The Arabic word urus from urs, death anniversary, is taken literally means a wedding. Baba arranged for the women to view the proceedings through the lattice work of an overlooking balcony. From their vantage point, they could hear Qawwali songs being sung. One particular chorus stuck in their minds. Not our wish and will, always keep his. Not ours ever, always his. Unki kushi pejanda, apne kushi kushi nahi are the actual words to the song. Baba too liked the Urdu song. Mehera recalled, there was so much rush. It was good we had seen the tomb the day before. There were parades and a band playing music. Then a cushion was brought out on which personal relics of the saint were placed and taken through the streets amongst the mass of humanity, all of whom wanted to surge on the procession, to touch the palki carrying the relics. It was awesome to watch. Baba was going back and forth between the terrace and where the Mandali were staying. Look properly, he told the women. See everything. There was so much to see. Thousands had gathered. There was a sadhu blessing people. There was a sadhu blessing people with a peacock fan, then holding his hands out for money. It was like a fair with a Ferris wheel, a merry-go-round, and different side shows. One attraction we went to was a quasi magic act. Another was a girl's head on a snake's body. Mehera and Mani wanted to ride on the merry-go-round, but with all the crowds, it did not seem possible. They asked Baba to allow them to have a turn on the Ferris wheel at least, and Baba said, we'll see about it. He mentioned it to his brother Jal, who arranged for the merry-go-round to be privately hired for the day and brought to their dock bungalow compound. Baba watched as the women rode on it 2 or 3 times each. Also brought to their house was a kind of 3D picture show. A woman came and narrated funny stories, as they looked at slides through an old-fashioned stereoscopic viewer. "See the fat queen of Delhi," she bellowed. Mani remembered having seen something similar in her childhood. One evening, they went to a small circus. It was unique, Mani recalled, because it was entirely run and performed by one big family. There were dogs dancing in skirts to a waltz, all very joyously done. Baba was really, really happy. At the end, the whole family came out on stage and bowed. How fortunate they were to have performed for God. From Aurangabad, they also went on a picnic to Ajanta one day. After walking around the famous painted caves, everyone was hungry. Just when they sat down to have a nice, leisurely lunch, monkeys gathered around them. "Eat quickly," Baba said. "Otherwise, these monkeys will grab the food." They gobbled everything down, but the monkeys were not as bold as some they had encountered in Mahabaleshwar or those in Rishikesh, who came right to their door seeking food. Soon the other women from Meherabad were called to stay at their bungalow for a few days, and Baba took everyone to the Ellora caves, which they had visited twice before. 4 newcomers from Meherabad came on this visit. Jerbai Dastur, Kaikobad's wife, and her 3 daughters, Meru, Gulu, and Jalu. The Dasturs had recently joined the ashram, and this was their first opportunity to meet Mehera. Margaret gave an amusing account of how the family first arrived at Meherabad at the end of July. Everyone put on their finest clothes to receive them, thinking, from Bombay, they must be modern, sophisticated folks. But we found out they didn't know anything. The girls were supposed to help Katie in the kitchen, but they peeled garlic as if they were sharpening a pencil. The first night the Dastur girls were at Meherabad, Margaret continued, they slept in my room with myself and Geisha, the cat. Another cat came in through the window and leaped through a hole in my mosquito net. It was one big ball of fur with me in the middle and so much noise, and only the dim light from the lanterns. Everyone came running to see what had happened. Everyone was now wearing their same old clothes full of patches. The Dastur girls looked at us. I had to laugh, thinking we had gotten all dressed up a few hours ago to show the girls what their new family was like. And here everyone was back in their old clothes again. The Dastur girls were sweet, but simple-minded and overweight, Mani recalled. Once Kitty made them do a play. We marveled at Kitty and Margaret's patience. Margaret told us the girls thought pearls grew on trees. Baba really taught them everything. Now they can cook, plan a meal, except that once they had decided that it was their rice and dal day. Pardon me. Now they can cook, plan a meal, except that once they had decided that it was their rice and dal day, nothing could budge them from it. Once, Jongle, master, the person hired to do the shopping, came from the bazaar saying that there was no doll in the market. But today is our rice and doll day, the girls insisted. Jongle repeated that it wasn't available, but this didn't seem to matter to the girls. Another time in Meherabad, Baba lined up all three girls in front of him and told them to say their names. First, Meru, who spoke with a very bass, slow voice, a lot of air. Then Gulu, short, aggressive, very fast. Then Jalu, a very high little girl voice. Baba said, say it quickly. They did. Meru, Gulu, Jalu. Then again and again, until we were holding our hands to our mouths to keep from laughing. When the women from Meherabad were sent back to the ashram from Aurangabad, Rano returned with them, while Naja, Kitty, and Walu stayed on. So here we are at the end of page 277. We'll pick up next week at the top of 278.